With the first pick in the 2012 NBA Draft, the New Orleans Hornets select Anthony Davis, Kyrie Irving, John Wall, Blake Griffin, Derrick Rose.
Yeah, baby! Yeah, baby!
No! Not possible!
Oh, sorry, did I break your concentration?
Now we're live. Okay, I was waiting for it. I guess there's a whole thing I have to wait for. All right, First Pick Podcast, episode number 8 here on Google Plus. Again, Ben Simpson and Matt Fair, and Matt. Again, we're here on video. We're our pretty selves. You're repping the Skins jersey, and I think this might turn into a trend. I think I might have to go with the jersey next time too.
Yeah, I mean, I wore it yesterday during the game, and I'm still excited for next season, so I didn't take it off. Wore it all day today.
I was either going to go with my Nats or my Tigers. We'll see what I wear next week. But again, we were so antsy to get this show done right now because of yesterday with the Super Bowl. We definitely we were going to wait maybe till Tuesday, and then we're like, no, we got to do this tonight on Monday night as we're recording this. And again, we don't really keep to a schedule, so for those expecting another show, very few of you, we'll probably go Monday or Tuesday again next week. We'll see how it goes. But plenty to talk about. First of all, let's get some thoughts about that game. Of course, last night, what game? The Super Bowl, of course. And, for a game that, honestly, for a while there, and I put up a piece today about it, for a while there, this game was a little boring for me, honestly. For a little bit of that first half, as a completely unbiased viewer, that first half, if you're a Ravens fan, you're going nuts. But as unbiased, I didn't really pick a side. I just wanted to watch a good game. It was a little boring there for a little bit. Second half, things a lot changed. What were some of your thoughts about this one?
Yeah, no, I think Jim Harbaugh and his boys definitely dodged a bullet there because I feel if the lights hadn't gone off, I feel like that game would have blown wide open. I don't see how they would have scored a touchdown. The Ravens had complete control from the opening kickoff to I guess right around the time the lights went off, ironically, which we'll get to in a second. But like I said, I feel like it would have been a lot worse than the score indicated at the end.
Yeah, what a weird – this was kind of just there were so many things that happened in this game. You mentioned the lights go out, which we are going to get to in a sec. You had the kickoff return for a touchdown. It was 109 yards, then changed to 108. You had, the comeback for the 49ers. You had just a lot of weird stuff happen in this game. You had the safety with the punter running around, just holding the ball. It was just it was a strange Super Bowl. It was a good game, but it was definitely weird. A lot of weird stuff happened. And we might as well get to the lights because we're gonna be talking about it soon. And this was honestly one of the weirdest things I've ever seen on TV to happen. And in my little post, I said the next one I can compare it to is the Artest brawl. Just live TV on incident where you're just like, what the heck is going on? And for this one, half the stadium lights went out. It was pretty weird there for a second.
Yeah, I for a second I was afraid that something bad was happening at the stadium because the broadcast with Nance and Sims went out for a second, and then they started showing the roof of the stadium, and obviously you could see that the power had gone out somewhere, and I think the NFL, that could have been extremely controversial if the game had tipped in the 49ers' favor because of it. Like, that, if the 49ers had ended up going on to win that game, I feel like this would be one of the most talked about games in the history of sports.
Dude, conspiracy theories were flying. Conspiracy left and right. I know your tweet, I believe it was you who tweeted it last night, that this, there was definitely a thought in the back of my mind, too, that I thought terrorism for a second. I thought terrorism. What the heck's going on? The Super Bowl is one of the most security risk things out there, events out there, and then you were just wondering, did somebody pull the plug or what? And then the whole Nance and Sims going off there. This was just a weird half hour of TV because you also could see the CBS people had no idea what to do. They had no idea. They just kept talking about the lights.
Yeah, it was just completely out of the ordinary, and it was kind of funny having the sideline reporter anchor the show for about 30 minutes, but I was actually starting to get impatient. Like, it's the biggest game of American sports, and we have to deal with this delay And I realized that they moved it to an earlier slot so everyone can watch the game. I know it's kind of ridiculous to watch a night game at 3:30 on the West Coast, but that delay made the game go so much longer than they originally intended, and I was pretty frustrated after like 30 minutes had gone by and we still had no football.
Yeah, and then they ran out of highlights to play. They were just, what more could you talk about? You really kind of saw some of these guys deer in the headlights when they don't have the script in front of them and what they're supposed to be talking about, because even the crew, when they went to the crew, Mike Brown and such, or James Brown, excuse me, and such, and even he was kind of running out of stuff to say. That was definitely one of the strangest things. And then, you get into other aspects of the game. The halftime show, I thought Beyonce did, and I wrote this, I thought she did okay. I didn't think it was amazing. I think she did what the average Super Bowl halftime show was supposed to be. You had the lights, you had, some pretty crazy effects and stuff, the guitar on fire, but I didn't find it that special. I mean, and I like Beyonce. I'm not against Beyonce, but wasn't that great?
Yeah, I mean, there wasn't anything too outrageous. I mean, the Destiny's Child reunion was kind of the icing on the cake for the whole performance, I guess. But I wasn't really like, wow, this is one of the most amazing things I've ever watched. And like you just said, like I don't have any qualms with Beyonce. It was just like, oh, she did her job as an entertainer, and she kept people with watching the screen.
Where was Jay-Z?
That's what I was wondering the entire time. I kept saying, he better come out and say something, especially since a couple of the songs featured him as well.
Well, I mean, so yeah, Beyonce, as a halftime show, she did fine. I'm interested to see who they might get next year, because now you've kind of seen them. Ever since the Janet Jackson incident, they went with the old bands for year after year after year.
Yep.
Then they started trending now back towards, hip-hop artists with Madonna, Black Eyed Peas, which was awful. And, Madonna was okay last year. And now you got, Beyonce. So now you really kind of wonder what direction they're going to go. I'm still campaigning for the Foo Fighters. Imagine the Foo Fighters halftime. I mean, they've got to be one of the, if we're talking band-wise, not too old. They're not too, you don't know a whole lot about them. They've been a mainstay in the rock scene for a while. I would love the Foo Fighters. And they have the catalog to do it. Little Best of You, little Everlong.
I totally agree, man. They would rock the stage. Another band that comes to mind is just the Chili Peppers.
Oh, yeah. No, that's on my list, too. We'll see. If we were in charge, we know where we would go, but who knows what they're going to go next year with.
Yeah.
But so the halftime show, okay. And we'll get back. Let's get back to the game itself. We don't want to. Again, we're going to talk about commercials later. We're going to do a little grade the commercials. But let's get to the game itself. And again, in that first half, Baltimore pretty much just dominated, offensively and defensively. Kaepernick looked uncomfortable in the pocket. He looked his age in the pocket. I didn't think the play calling was that great early on for Harbaugh. The 49ers Harbaugh, Jim Harbaugh. But, again, you got to clarify now. But this was kind of first half. Let's just talk about the first half, then we'll get to the second half. First half-wise, what did you like? What didn't you like out of the teams?
I love the fact that the Ravens finally showed how you stop the read option, which is basically something they teach in high school football. It's not a difficult play to defend, yet all these NFL defenses have not been able to solve it the entire season, and the Ravens finally showed how you do it, which is hitting the quarterback and playing tight man defense. I mean, it was pretty fun to actually see somebody lay ahead on Kaepernick even though he didn't have the ball. Like, there's been so many instances this season where the defenders just run upfield and have no idea who has the ball because they're basically playing the running back, and they make fools of themselves. I loved how the Ravens were finally putting hats on Kaepernick and actually tackling Gore in the backfield, even if he didn't have the ball. That's just how you stop the option. It's really not that difficult. And Kaepernick did look pretty young. He definitely showed his age. But he did make a couple of throws that were just really impressive. I'm really impressed with his arm and his accuracy, especially.
He's definitely got the arm. He's definitely got one of the best arms, and I'm not going to discredit him for that. And I think some of it was a play calling because you did see them stop the read option a few times. But then there were some times when the running game would go right to Ray Lewis, and Ray Lewis was showing his age on the other end of the spectrum. He was missing tackles. these guys were a little too quick for him. I think San Francisco, they could have pressed a little more leaned a little more on the running game. And the passing game was there at times, but that first half was abysmal for the 49ers.
Exactly, and what happened was the Ravens kept stopping Frank Gore, and that's how their offense was basically going. That's how the game plan for their offense is. They're going to have Gore run down your throats for a little bit, then you're expecting him to take the ball, then Kaepernick pulls it back for his option plays, and then rather than handing the ball off at all, they do play action and hit Crabtree for a slant or a button hook or have Moss come for a comeback or something, and that's how they've been doing it all season. That's what they did against the Falcons in the second half, and that's how they got to the Super Bowl. And the Ravens game planned really well for it.
Well, what about that second half? Things, and again, the weirdest thing is when that whole lights fiasco was happening is it definitely was in the back of a lot of people's minds, like, hey, Baltimore is going to be cooling off during this period. They had the whole halftime wait. Now here in the third quarter, they're getting this long wait again. There's some old legs over there for Baltimore, but at the same time, they're professionals. I didn't think that part affected it. I think it was more that it, and again, I'll get your opinion on this, on how much do you think that whole light outage had in play for this game in the second half? Obviously, the outcome didn't change for the one that it looked like it was happening, but I definitely think it had an impact. I think San Francisco had more time there to maybe game plan a little bit, change up things a little bit, because they looked like a different team after it.
I feel that it definitely has more of an impact on the mental side of the game. I think physically these guys are going to have the adrenaline. I mean, you're playing in the Super Bowl. It's the last game of the season. You literally throw everything you have in your body on the field. I think that the time that the 30 minutes the 49ers had to basically sit there and be like, holy hell, what are we doing? We're getting our asses kicked right now. What do we need to do differently? And it from a mental aspect, I definitely feel like you're going to get cold mentally. Maybe you're not going to be as into the game right away. But from a physical standpoint, I just don't feel like it had that much of an effect on the Ravens' age as a defense. And the 49ers obviously were not affected at all.
Well, then again, I mean, but then again, they did look, and that you can't deny, the second half, they looked a lot better. I know that doesn't just happen when there are 30-minute light breaks. Teams look better after one half of football compared to another half of football because they have that half to build on. But at the same time, it had, I mean, again, your opinion, we'll get a little argumentative, I don't mind. But I honestly think it had enough of an impact where Baltimore could have been pretty upset by it. I mean, you saw the way John Harbaugh was screaming at the guy who came over to him. Now, again, that was before San Francisco had a chance to come back. But if I'm John Harbaugh, I'm thinking, my team is literally destroying the guys across the field. Now we have to wait 30 more minutes for this inevitable outcome at that point. And I'm pretty pissed. And I'm pretty pissed if I'm John Harbaugh. But I don't know. I don't know. I just think it had at least some. I'm not saying it impacted the outcome of that game because clearly it didn't. But I think it definitely had somewhat of an impact, and that leads us to that the referee's impact on this game. And there are two plays at the end of that game, and again, we're going to try to get some video highlights for you on this episode. And the two that I look at is one, of course, that the safety play where obviously Baltimore was going to take the safety. And there was definitely, you look at the video, well, I wouldn't say definitely because they didn't call it, but there were a couple probable holds there, like literally egregious holds on that play. And you saw the way Jim Harbaugh reacted to that. And then you look at one of the final plays there, the little pass in the end zone. There might have been a hold there too. But those are the two that I look at. And the referees, here's the question. Are referees too scared to call those penalties that would definitely impact the game like that?
I don't know necessarily if scared is the word. I think that they don't want to deal with the scrutiny of making a call like that and then having it impact the game to the point where people are, again, blaming them. But I mean, as a referee, you're going to get blamed regardless of who wins and loses. But like I said, I don't necessarily think they're afraid to make the call. I think they would rather have the players play it out and not have as big of an impact as some of the games that they had during the regular season. You did mention that I definitely saw a lot of holding on the safety/punt Another huge play was on the 2-point conversion where Ed Reed was like at least two and a half steps off sides, and Kaepernick literally had less than half a second to get rid of the football, and he just sailed it over Moss's head.
Yeah, Ed Reed's fast, but he's not that fast.
Yeah, and the thing is they called maybe 2 or 3 offsides the entire game, and I mean that's a lot for an NFL game, especially a Super Bowl. So I was expecting them to at least throw the flag on that play. Now the Crabtree play, that's a little bit more interesting because, in my opinion, and I don't know referee code. I'm not an NFL referee, and I've never came close to anything like that. But in my opinion, you only throw the flag for illegal contact if the wide receiver has made separation and is obviously getting away from the defensive back, and the defensive back is basically just hitting him so he doesn't get away. When you're locked out, like the way that Crabtree and I believe it was Justin Smith for the Ravens, they were completely locked out. Like, that's a legal play. And ironically, they were 5 yards out of the goal line, and they were a couple yards into the end zone where they were still making contact. But Crabtree had zero separation, and the ball was in the air for a little bit before he even realized that it was there. And I feel like if he had disengaged and tried to actually make a better effort on the ball, like earlier on in the play, I think they'd definitely throw that flag. But that he was fighting with them basically until the ball was like 10 or 15 feet above his head, and then he realized he had to get rid of him.
Here's my problem with that is, and again, I agree with pretty much almost everything you're saying. But my problem with it is, and again, I have put an image on it on the piece that I wrote, the two arms around the receiver is when I get a problem. When the two arms are blocking the arms of the receiver to be able to get up. And there was a point in that play where both of the arms were around Crabtree's, the outside of his arms. That's when I have a problem. I have a problem there with that because, he's not able to make a play for that football. I understand they disengaged from there for a second, and I understand the reason why you necessarily wouldn't call that. But then again, I don't like the phrase "a good no call" at all. And that phrase has been thrown out a lot after last night. And there's no such thing as a good no call. I think I'm not saying you have to call a penalty every single play. And I guess technically that would be considered not calling it, so a no call. But to end a game, I don't believe in a good no call because we see this in the NBA all the time. Guys getting hacked on last-second shots, and the referee's too afraid to blow that whistle for the point, to have no time on the clock and let the guy go to the line. I just don't think. I honestly think that last play there that should have been called, but. Again, like we said, and if that wasn't called, at least on the safety, there's some egregious holding on that safety. I mean, literally, just
yeah. And that's another
ridiculous.
That's another thing. If you look at a wide shot of the play, and I'm looking at the picture from your piece, and if you look at a wide shot of every player that's on the field, Delaney Walker literally is hugging what looks like Terrell Suggs. It could be Courtney Upshaw. He's literally giving him a bear hug, which is offensive holding. So I feel like it's one of the holding can be called on any play, and it's one of those things that you don't necessarily jump to right away unless it's completely blatant. And in this situation, looking at the picture that you have up, it is blatant that he have his arms wrapped around. But, I mean, going into the play, like I was saying, if Crabtree disengages at the line of scrimmage or around the goal line even, they throw the flag immediately.
And seeing that in real time. In real time, it's different. And I understand that. But,
yeah.
So, it's interesting. It's definitely something that's going to be talked about for a while. And I'm sure the 49ers are still upset about it. And I agree with the play that people are forgetting is the one that you're exactly talking about, where Ed Reed was clearly offsides. I mean, there was no way he could get to Kaepernick that fast. He's fast, but he's not that fast. Now, let's move on here. And again, we're still talking Super Bowl, but let's talk about Flacco and Joe Flacco, who had himself a pretty terrific game. And now that he's won the Super Bowl and he's been in the conversation, is up there being, a top 5, possibly a top 5 quarterback in the NFL. Is he now in that elite category? We throw out elite all the time. I know Matt Stevens has a post that's going to be put up about the subject of elite quarterbacks. Is Flacco elite now that he's got that title?
Well, I mean, elite's a general word. I feel like you could call 10 quarterbacks in the league elite which would then throw him in that category. It depends on how deep you want to go into it. I think that if there was going to be a draft and say it's a quarterback draft and everyone starts with no quarterbacks and you basically start like 1 through 32, I feel like he doesn't get drafted until like after the 10th or 11th pick. And he does have a lot of the characteristics of an elite quarterback. He has a phenomenal arm. He can make some of the throws like that very few quarterbacks in the league can make. He's huge. He's tall. He can see over the offensive line. Generally he's made pretty good decisions on the field. I know that there was a couple of throws that he made that would not have been completed if a competent secondary was playing. And I have no idea what happened to the Niners secondary during the playoffs. They were one of the best during the regular season, and they completely fell off. But like I said, I think it really depends on how deep you want to go into the elite category. I think he had a great postseason run, didn't throw a single pick. But like I said, it depends on how specific you want to be about that.
Well, then, I mean, and I agree with you again in the fact that I think, honestly, if we were, like you said, if we were drafting our 10 quarterbacks that we would take, I don't know if Flacco, personally, I don't know if Flacco would necessarily even be in that 10 quarterbacks that I'd look at. And that's a shame. And it's a shame. And that's just the way, he's kind of been, his MO and his publicized over his career. I mean, you look at last night, 22 for 33, 287 yards, 3 TDs, no picks. You mentioned no picks in the postseason. That should be elite. He should be in that category, but he's not. And why is he not? Why is he not? Is it because he's boring? I wouldn't necessarily say he's that boring of a quarterback, but as you said, he does make some not so smart decisions. Last night, I think there was a couple plays, like you said, where he kind of scrambled a little too much at some points. But why is he not a top 5 quarterback in our minds when in reality he probably is statistically up there in the league right now? Why don't we like Joe Flacco?
I mean, it maybe, I don't know if it has a lot to do with the Ravens offense as a whole. I mean, they'd have a bunch of deep threats. Jacoby Jones and Torrey Smith are ridiculously fast guys who stretch the field out, but they don't do anything too spectacular. They're ground and pound. They do air the ball out a little bit, but they don't have the quarterbacks like Aaron Rodgers have like 4 like big name receivers, and they run this offense that's basically predicated on his performance. And the offense that they run is based a lot off of the running game as well. And you see teams like the Patriots don't necessarily run the ball as much, but we value Tom Brady so much more because their offense is predicated on his success. And I feel like that has a lot to do with our perception of Flacco. I mean, obviously, it's going to change after his postseason run this year. He's definitely going to get paid like an elite quarterback after this performance, but it's his perception in the eye of the average NFL fan that is kind of skewed.
Yeah, I guess, I mean, a lot of it, too, he's not necessarily the flashiest guy in the world. I mean, he doesn't scramble. I mean, he's not a running, mobile quarterback, really. He's never up there slinging some of the best, most yards in the league. He always has a pretty strong passer rating, but again, when you look, statistically, he's just never really. He's always around, the middle, or at least the upper middle, but he's never at the top. So I guess, but again, I mean, what Flacco did with this team this year it's pretty impressive. I'm impressed. Again, staying with the Ravens, then we'll move over to some more conversation about the 49ers. Was this a good way for? I mean, obviously, it's a good way for Ray Lewis. You got to think to end his career. Getting that ring, and again, I'm not even a big Ray Lewis fan, honestly. I don't really like the guy that much, and I know you probably do like him, but I don't like Ray Lewis. But I will admit he had a heck of a career, and this was a great way to end it.
Yeah, I mean, going out as a Super Bowl champ, assuming that he's still going to retire.
Yeah, you never know.
I've heard reports that he's still considering otherwise, but obviously, going out as a Super Bowl champion is something that is just legendary. You can't top that. I can't even describe a way that would possibly be better than that. But I don't think that this is the last image we are going to have of him. And I don't want to rain on any of the parade, of their Super Bowl championship, but there were steroid reports recently, which I knew we're going to have a little discussion about that later. So I don't think that this is the last we've heard of his career, because I feel like he's going to stay in the public eye for a little bit longer.
Also, if I'm Ray Lewis, that wasn't really, again, you win the Super Bowl, but that wasn't really the game I want to end my career on.
Yeah.
I don't think he necessarily, I mean, statistically and player-wise, obviously Baltimore gets the win. They get the Super Bowl. You've got to be happy about that. And Ray Lewis, obviously ecstatic about that. But, and again, I mentioned this earlier, I just don't think he played that great of a game in this one. He didn't have that much of an impact in this one. And if I'm Ray Lewis and if I'm the dominating force that I've been my whole career, I want a better game than getting, looks like 4 tackles in the game, 7 combined. That's not that great. If you're Ray Lewis, that's not that great.
Yeah, I mean, compared to his entire postseason run, it was definitely a lackluster game for him. And I personally just think it's amazing that he was able to stay on the field for as long as he did without taking any breaks. I think he played every single snap of the game against New England, and I'm not specifically sure on how many plays he played in the Super Bowl, but that is just ridiculous. And he definitely impacted his team's charisma, I would say, just being on the field, and that's something that is unparalleled.
Oh yeah, I'll give him props again, and we'll probably be seeing Ray on it. If he's not in the NFL, we'll definitely be seeing him on TV. He's got to be somewhere as maybe an analyst, or he's going to be. We're going to literally see Ray Lewis until he eventually dies, because he's going to be on TV for the rest of his life, and that's just the persona he's grown over the past couple of years since the incident. But and then my last point before we get to the commercials is, did you think the play calling and for the 49ers this game and their utilization of Colin Kaepernick, did you think it was that great? Because honestly, I know they lost, so obviously it wasn't as good as the Ravens. But at the same time, I don't think they utilized Kaepernick's legs that much. I think he found points in this game. He talked about Baltimore was able to shut down the read option quite a bit, but I think working out of that pistol, I think they could have done more. Honestly, I think the play calling could have been better.
Yeah, and I completely agree. If I'm Harbaugh, Jim Harbaugh for the 49ers, if I'm him, I'd start the game by airing the ball out. Because I know that for the past 2 weeks that my brother is teaching his defense how to stop the read option, because that's been our bread and butter all postseason. And if I'm Coach Jim Harbaugh for the 49ers, I'm definitely focusing more on the passing game to start it. And I mean, they did do that at the very first play. They had like a 20-yard reception except for the illegal formation. But you definitely open up the passing game. That way that the Ravens are thinking pass, then you can start with the running plays. And then they're playing deeper downfield. They might have more corners or safeties in, and Kaepernick can run all over those guys. So I definitely think that they could have done a better job game planning. I think that Jim Harbaugh's hubris definitely came into play when game planning for this, and they just wanted to beat them the way that they had been beating teams all season. But at some point in the game, you have to change up how you're winning. You can't do the same thing every single week and be successful.
Did you like the fake field goal? Did you like that move? I know it didn't pan out, but did you like that move?
Absolutely. They were deep in their own. They were deep in Niners territory. They'd been smashing them in the face all game up front, and if Tucker gets that extra couple yards, you can put a wrap on the game right there. It's over. Like you don't come back from that.
Yeah, I think that would have been momentum. That would have been a dagger, and that was actually I liked it too. I thought that was fun to see. Let's get on to some fun parts of the show. Before we get to it, though, I will mention again. I'll throw out our Facebook and our Twitter right there: Facebook.com/FirstPickBlog, and then Twitter @FirstPickBlog. Please follow us. Please like us. Our friends at Tint, who helps provide some of the content on our site, our new look on our site. Give them a follow at TINT @Tint. They really helped us out, and they're promoting us on their site. They got a nice email from Tim from Tint today. That's his name.
Thanks, Tim.
Exactly. Thank you, Tim, and thanks, Tim, for making that product that we can use on our site. It's the whole layout that you see there on the first page with the Twitter, the Facebook. It's very nice, and we definitely really like it. Hopefully, maybe there'll be some ad revenue from them sometime soon. Hopefully, we'll see. I'll work on that. Let's get to the commercials, and we're going to try to have these play in the background as we talk about them, and let's play a grade the commercials here. And I have some listed, and we can probably name some more. Because again, there's the game and then there's the commercials. These are two separate entities when it comes to Super Bowl night. And some people just watch for the commercials. Some people just watch for the game. Guys like me and you, we watch for both. And I'll go down the list here. We'll each give our grade. We'll have it play in the background. So let's start off with a nice one. Again, these all come off of lists that people say were some of the best and some of the worst. The Taco Bell old people ad. That's what I wrote down. The one where they had playing a We Are Young in the background in Spanish. I admit this one was pretty good. I'm gonna give it a solid B+ because I enjoyed it. I like having the old people just going crazy. I think old people going crazy is one of the funniest things to see in the world. The tattoo was one of my favorite parts. I give it a B+.
I'm going to go with an A for this one. I feel that if a commercial gets you so wound up in what you're watching in such a short amount of time that you completely forget that you're watching an advertisement, then it just exceeds all other levels of commercial. I had no idea it was a Taco Bell commercial until they rolled up in the drive-thru and the cop drove by. That was hilarious.
I know. I was wondering. I thought it was maybe a car commercial. I didn't know if it was maybe Doritos. They always have kind of weird commercials, but
the Spanish music was throwing me off, but I thought it was hilarious. Though
that was a great one. I love that one too, and I think general consensus is that's a pretty good one too. My next one, the Leon Sandcastle, the Deion Sanders spoof one. I found this one hilarious. Deion Sanders, of course, again, we'll be playing this, but he comes back out of retirement, but under a different name, goes to the combine, blows everybody away. And I think this got a good chuckle out of guys that, our age and a little older guys that actually watch Deion Sanders play. This one was pretty good. I'm going to give it a solid B.
Yeah, I'm going to go B+ for that one. I thought it was one of my favorite commercials. And Deion's always been an entertainer no matter where he's been. And I thought it was hilarious, given the fact that he said multiple times on television that he could come back and play right now and still be 100%. And I just love how they decided to play off that idea. And the Sandcastle thing was hilarious as well. So I'm going to go B+ for this one.
All right. And again, those at home, you have your own grades. You go ahead and tweet us. Go ahead and Facebook us. Tell us your grades for these commercials. And I'm going to skip around on this list now. That whole GoDaddy. And again, this has been one of the most talked about ones. GoDaddy always is fun. But the whole geek, the makeout sesh is what we'll call it. And this one was interesting. I'll get your grade first, and then I'll give mine. But this one was a little weird.
Yeah, I don't know really where to start on that one. I mean, the GoDaddy commercials since they got Danica Patrick have been pretty risque. Especially during the Super Bowl, and they've always been, they've always taken pride in that. And I was kind of expecting them to advertise a tease of some girl or something like they always do, and then I was just kind of, what the hell am I watching right now? Is this actually television? And you got to believe that there's families all across the country, conservative families.
Oh yeah, that was probably an awkward time.
Yeah. Yeah, I wouldn't be a fan of that if I was with my 3-year-old daughter watching the Super Bowl for the first time. And in terms of shock value, I'm going with an A, but as a commercial, I'm probably going D+ for this.
As a human being, it was just uncomfortable watching that.
Yeah.
Bar Raffaelli, the name of the supermodel, and of course Geek or actually I've seen in a lot of stuff. I know he's been in Old School. I believe he's been in Entourage.
Yeah.
He was on Chuck.
Hyman. That guy's name.
yeah. We got to throw his name out there. His last name's Hyman. Jesse Hyman. Yeah. Check out his IMDb because that guy's been everything. And I heard also somewhere that it took about 35 takes to get this done, which is pretty hilarious. And good for Hyman there. He gets to.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I can't even imagine being him in that scenario, but. I'll agree with you. I think shock value is definitely up there, but commercial-wise, the noises were a little too much for me. I'm going C- on this one. And you're right, GoDaddy, we're so used to girls almost being naked, and then they quickly go to the end of the commercial, and then now we got a fat, ugly guy making out. I don't know what's going on, GoDaddy. They also had a couple other ones, but there was definitely some celebrity commercials this year. I remember last year they had the Jerry Seinfeld one, which was pretty hilarious. They had Matthew Broderick, the Ferris Bueller's kind of spoof. That was really funny. This year, it was Paul Rudd and Seth Rogen for the Samsung ad, and then Amy Poehler there for for the Best Buy ad, and then there were a few others popping up. But these two ads, I love. I love both of those ads. Amy Poehler is hilarious on Parks and Recreation, and she's real funny. And Paul Rudd and Seth Rogen, everybody knows. Guys like me and you, we know those guys from all the Apatow movies. I love both of these commercials. I'm gonna give A's to both of them.
Yeah, no, I'm going A with the Seth Rogen, Paul Rudd. I thought it was hilarious. I mean, those guys are phenomenal together in everything they've been in, and it was just great to have a brief little moment to remember that Seth Rogen is still probably the funniest human being on earth at this point.
I love that.
Yeah, no, and I love the incorporation with LeBron, given their other commercials and stuff. It was pretty funny. It was not even funny; it was just clever, and that's the best kind of humor, in my opinion.
Yeah. Did you like the Poehler one? Did you like the Amy Poehler at Best Buy? Or you not Amy?
I saw like moments of it. I had to watch it again today.
Okay.
I cooked a lot of stuff last night, but believe me, I haven't eaten that much in a very long time. Lots of seafood, lots of junk, all that good stuff.
I had
to watch it again today, and I guess when you see it for the first time and you're watching it on television, it's probably funnier.
You're right. No, I agree. It was probably funnier at the time, but I do love Amy Poehler. We also got to see Will Dafoe in a commercial.
Oh yeah, Will Dafoe. I like that one.
That was pretty good. Mercedes ad, excuse me. We had a couple other nice ones. You had the farmer one was actually, I thought, pretty cool. The one for Dodge.
Yeah.
We had the voiceover there. Yeah, I mean, again, it was one of those commercials where when it comes on, after the initial talking between everybody, suddenly the room gets quiet when a commercial like that on. You just kind of hanging on every word. I thought that was a good one. Did you like the Doritos ads this year? The Go for Sale one I liked. I did not really necessarily like the whole dad dressing up one. The one with the little girl and the Fashionista Dad is the name of it. I wasn't a big fan of that one. The goat one, though, I'll give a solid B+ too.
Yeah, I'll give a B for the goat. I actually went on Facebook on the Doritos page, and they were having all the commercials. You could vote for which ones they were actually going to air, and that was one of the ones I voted for, so I was pretty happy to see that was on there. One of my favorite ones was the Axe commercial with the astronauts.
Yes.
For their new Axe brand. I forget what it's called. Like Axe. What is it called? I forget what it is. But that was hilarious. Just
that was pretty good. And then last, other ones that I'd written down here, I definitely did like the Oreo one. The Oreo one in the library was pretty funny.
Yeah.
And then the last one was great. That Volkswagen one with the Jamaican voices. I honestly found it kind of funny, but now I'm reading online. Everyone's finding it racist.
Yeah,
everyone's
people
finding it
did
racist.
not like this commercial, and I have no idea why. I was reading on USA Today this morning that all these people were just completely sensitive to the idea that Jamaicans were getting made fun of, and I read somewhere that like Jamaica's Minister of Tourism or something viewed it as a compliment and didn't like care at all, and they were like, I don't see what the big deal is. Like I feel like the society we live in, people are like completely sensitive to even the smallest of jokes nowadays, and you just have to be very careful about your marketing. But I literally saw no problem with it. I wouldn't be if I was a native Jamaican, I wouldn't have been offended by it.
Yeah, I don't know. People make a big deal of it. The people who make a big deal out of it are usually people that aren't even affected in the commercial, or aren't even people that are being talked about. It's people trying to make a whole lot of nothing. So overall, though, let's give an overall grade to this year's commercials. After all the ones that we saw, we'll again put a bunch of them. We'll put them on the site, and you can tell us what you thought about them. But overall, honestly, I thought last year's commercials were better than this year's, so I'm going to give this year's a solid B. But I can't go any higher than that.
Yeah, I felt some of them were trying way too hard, and like I definitely loved. I didn't see anyone last year that I thought was stupid or questioned. So I'm gonna go C+ for this year.
All right, so we both enjoyed the commercial. It was enough to enjoy, but not enough to love this
Yeah.
year's commercial. All right, let's move on. Again, we talked plenty of Super Bowl here. I'm pretty sure we talked for almost 40 minutes, 30 minutes about the Super Bowl. But again, we wanted to give our rapid reactions after. So now let's get into some NBA talk here. Before we get into our long discussion, we're going to talk about PED. So we're going to quickly buzz through these NBA talk. First of all, this trade happened before. I mean, we did our last show last week. This trade happened in between the Pistons, Grizz, and Raptors trade. Do you like the trade? Do you think every team got what they want? Of course, the Grizzlies getting Tayshaun Prince, Ed Davis, Austin Daye, 2013 second-round pick in cash. They traded Rudy Gay and Hamid Haddadi, who is Haddadi, or however you say his last name. He's going to be gone. He's probably the Raptors. He's probably going to leave the Raptors though. But the Raptors got Rudy Gay, and then lastly the Pistons getting Jose Calderon, and that one who's actually started the game tonight. Played all right. We'll see. I haven't gone back and watched it. But do you like the trade for all these teams? It seems like some teams got clearly more than others in this one, but that's the way it usually goes in these things.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, the Memphis got more players and they got a draft pick, and I really don't see how any of these teams honestly benefited significantly from any of the acquisitions. The Grizzlies traded away Wayne Ellison, and I forget a couple other players a few weeks ago or a week ago to clear up salary space, and now they're taking in two more guys, and they lost a first-round pick in the process. And Tayshaun Prince fits in great to what they do as a team, but I don't see how they are significantly better with him on the team. For Toronto, I mean, Rudy Gay he's a great defender. He's 17-5-2 as a starter, and he can't shoot from the perimeter, and they've struggled shooting from the perimeter all season. So I don't see what the significant upgrade was, other than Kyle Lowry doesn't have to deal with Calderon anymore, and I mean they still have DeRozan, who also can't shoot from outside. So I don't understand how they got better there. For Detroit, I mean, Calderon brings veteran presence. They have a lot of young guards on the team that will benefit from that. I mean, Bynum and Brandon Knight will be a little bit better just from having his experience. I mean, he's a 7 or 8 year vet in the league now. But again, like, how much better are they without Tayshaun Prince and with the addition of Calderon? I really don't see how all these teams benefited significantly. Like,
Yeah.
I don't feel like any of these guys are jumping up to the next tier of like NBA greatness with this trade.
Yeah, and again, I'll agree with you, as I seem to say all the time, in the fact that I don't think it necessarily benefited any of these teams, as you mentioned, that much more. You mentioned Rudy Gay for the Raptors, and that who is he going to be the guy that's taking the shot at the end of the shot clock in a close game? As you mentioned, he can barely shoot from outside. Kyle Lowry, I would like more to take that shot, but then Rudy Gay now he's going to want his look, so you have that whole scenario. I liked Calderon on Toronto because I like the veteran. You talk about veteran presence. Bless you there, partner. But so again, for them, I mean, yeah, you get Rudy Gay, but is Rudy Gay going to change this franchise around, or are they going to stay in the middle of the pack like they have been every single year, towards the bottom, just out of the lottery pick? I mean, just out of the playoffs, or barely in. So they were that much improved in Memphis, as you mentioned. I don't really necessarily like the move there. They've been making some strange moves. Maybe it's because John Hollinger is now in charge. Well, not in charge, but now he's a consultant. They hired our boy John Hollinger. But for Memphis, getting Tayshaun will add something to this team. He'll add the corner three, which he can hit consistently, and then he'll be good. But as you mentioned, and Ed Davis, I do like who's involved in this one as well. I think he's going to. Yeah,
Davis was getting a lot better, and he's been developing.
I don't know why they traded him away. Why?
It made no sense. Like they're a young team, and they're trying to get better for the future. And I mean, they're already big down low. And I think Davis was getting a lot better this season, and he has not been good since he got traded.
And then lastly for the Pistons, as a Pistons fan, I mean, I'm okay with the move. Of course, I'm sad to see Tayshaun go, the last of the championship team there.
Yeah.
But obviously it had to happen eventually. And honestly, I wasn't a big fan of the re-signing when they re-signed him for a big contract. I didn't think he really deserved it. Austin Day was always a deer in the headlights for me for the Pistons, so I'm fine to see him go. But then again, getting another guard just kind of confuses me a little bit. Because you now have Rodney Stuckey up there, you have Will Bynum up there, Jose Calderon, and Brandon Knight. These are 4 guys who need their playing time, and it just creates kind of a logjam. Will Bynum he's earned starters minutes. The way Will Bynum has played the last month, part of the terrific Pistons bench. But then again, maybe they obviously want him coming off the bench to provide that spark. Mm-hmm. Now now they're going to have Stuckey coming off the bench probably, and have Calderon. And now, I don't know what exactly Lawrence Frank's going to do, but it's just getting another guard and losing 2 small forwards, a little strange there.
Yeah, I really don't understand this from any of the team's perspectives.
The one good thing, though, the Pistons will have some money to spend. That could either be a good or a bad thing with Joe Dumars. Last time he had money to spend, Ben Gordon and Charlie Villanueva ended up on it. So we'll see how that goes.
I love Ben Gordon.
Oh, yeah. No, I like Ben Gordon, too. I don't like Ben Gordon in Detroit, though.
He wasn't great.
We're actually, and again, we're actually going to skip. We'll probably talk about this more if we end up doing another show this week. I wanted to get some into the Rising Stars Challenge, but actually, it looks like we might have enough time to get in it quickly. Of course, the Rising Stars Challenge, they changed the format last year with it, where now Chuck and Shaq get to pick their teams. They mix up the rookies and sophomores, and I just originally my plan was that we were going to kind of go through and draft everybody for our own teams, and then I realized that might be a little boring for some people, I guess. So let's just go ahead and instead of drafting everybody, let's just draft kind of a starting 5 for this year's. And again, there's a pool of eligible players. The draft itself is going to happen on February 7th on TNT. They're going to draft their teams. Let's get our starting 5 And again, but it's kind of like a draft here. So when you say a player, he's going to be off the board for me. And imaginary coin flip, you get first pick. Do you have the pool of guys in front of you right now?
I do.
Okay.
Yeah,
all right. You do have the names. Okay. So I'll let you get first pick here. Out of that pool, who are you taking with your first pick?
I'm taking Kyrie Irving. I feel like he's the best player available, easily.
All right.
Easily.
All right. There's no argument there. Kyrie having, again, another terrific season. I'm going to go with another guard who's having a terrific season. I'm going to go with Damian Lillard for Portland. I think I love what I've seen from him out of this year. So now we have the point guard battle going at each other. Who's your second pick?
I'm going to go, and you might be surprised by this, I'm taking Nikola Vucevic.
Hey, the guy can rebound, all right?
He's been a rebounding machine, double threat. He's been killing it for the fantasy team. I love him.
Oh yeah, no, I'm not totally against that pick. I'm going to go with the rebounder myself and Kenneth Faried, the ping pong boing boing, whatever they're calling the manimal. Yeah, that's the nickname. That guy can straight up ball underneath. One of the best rebounders in the league, one of the best in-game dunkers in the league. I'm going with Faried. So we both got a guard, we both got a rebound guy. Who are you going next?
I'm going to take. This is a good question. I'm taking Kemba Walker. He's been really impressive this year on a struggling team. He's been scoring a lot, distributing a lot better than he did last year. So I'm taking him to fill my other guard spot.
All right, so to recap, Matt, right now you have Kyrie Irving, you have Kemba Walker, and you have Nikola Vucevic, or Vukovic, whatever. I still don't know how to pronounce his name. And I have Damian Lillard, I have Kenneth Faried, and I also have Bradley Beal. I'm drafting right now. I think I like the Lillard and Beal combo just like I like the Wall and Beal combo for the Wizards. So I'm going Beal with the shooter on the outside. What do you got for number 4?
This was a tough one for me. I narrowed it down to 2 guys, but I think I'm going to take Harrison Barnes. He's been really good for the Warriors this year, and I like his potential going forward, especially on a team with a lot of shooters.
All right, and my fourth pick, I'm going to go with AD, Anthony Davis.
Nah.
I think that
Not Andre Drummond?
Not Andre Drummond, but I like, honestly, if it's head-to-head between Davis and Drummond, I have to go with Davis. Drummond can't shoot worth a lick. He's a Tyson Chandler type. But then again, this is kind of an all-star game in a way, so you kind of do like the dunks. But Anthony Davis, we all know, can dunk as well. I'm going with AD.
All right. I'm going to go with a 4 guy here. I'm going to go with Tristan Thompson. I like him. He's a banger down low. He's long, big rebounder guy. I feel like him and Kyrie are going to be a great matchup together going against your team. So.
All right, so you got Kemba, you got Nikola, you got Tristan Thompson, you got Kyrie Irving, and you have Harrison Barnes. Okay. And for my final pick, I'm going to go to MKG. I'm going to go Michael Kidd-Gilchrist on this one.
He had that nasty injury last night. I hope you feel like he's
Yeah, oh no, trust me. I'm a doctor. I know that he's going to be okay. I'm taking him in this game. So, and this is actually, I think, 2 pretty good teams. Again, we would draft the rest of the guys. We all know guys like Tyler Zeller are probably going to go last. Alexei Shved, Minnesota will be down there. But and again, make your own team. Make your own starting 5 and put it up against ours. Comment on our Facebook, and we'll see. We just wanted to go through those guys. This is going to be fun. I look forward to the Rising Stars Challenge. They used to call it the rookie-sophomore game, but I think this year is going to be real fun, especially having Kyrie in there and Damian Lillard. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, I can't wait.
We got a couple more NBA topics. We're going to zip right through these because we want to get into our big discussion towards the end of the show. So, first of all, we'll talk about for about a minute about each one of these. Do you like Kobe's unselfishness? Clearly here this season, he's worked a lot on his passing game. Again, he's always been a good passer, but he's always, I've never really noticed it until this year. Now watching him play, he's piling up the assist numbers. And do you like Kobe suddenly being a little more unselfish, or would you rather Kobe be more selfish, not worry about the passing? Because clearly the Lakers, things are going wrong anyway.
Yeah, no. The only time that he's ever been successful on a NBA arena, or in the NBA arena, is when he's been able to defer to other players rather than taking the load on himself. Like in the post-Shaq years, the immediate post-Shaq years, where it was basically him and Smush Parker and Kwame Brown. He was the shooting load, and believe me, he was amazing during those seasons, putting up ridiculous numbers. Obviously, the 81-point game. But the only time he's ever been successful is when he's been able to defer to his teammates and distribute the ball. So I obviously like it, and that's the only way that this team can get out of the hole that they've gotten themselves into.
I like it as well, and I am wondering to see, will the Lakers, and again, would you rather the Lakers barely get into the playoffs and be a 7 or 8 seed and have to go against a Miami or an Indiana or something like that, or would you, or New York, of course, up there too, but or would you rather them just miss the playoffs entirely and just try to kind of focus on retooling for next year? Because I feel like if they do limp into the playoffs, it's going to be ugly.
Yeah, no, I don't really know which way to go. Obviously, you want them to, would want them to make the playoffs because you never know what can happen. But I don't like the prospects for this upcoming offseason. There's no way that Dwight's coming back, and they've dug themselves in a hole, with Powell especially, and I don't like D'Antoni as their coach. I don't see how they're going to be able to overcome this for a few years. At least when Kobe retires, I feel like they're going to have a lot more options to open up for signings and draft picks and whatnot, but I don't see how this is going to end well.
It's going to be weird to see life post-Kobe for the Lakers, again, because it seems like he's been there our entire lives. Both me and you watching basketball, just to not have Kobe anymore is going to be a very interesting day. But again, is the unselfishness working for him this year? Sure, the numbers are great. He's having, honestly, one of his best seasons statistically of his career, but it doesn't matter until when it boils down to wins. So we'll see. And last, Russell Westbrook. And again, I kind of want to get your opinion on the guy himself. And again, for Russell, and I'm not a Thunder fan, but I do enjoy watching them, and I'll root for them. come playoff time, because obviously the Wizards and the Pistons ain't making it. But do you like? Of course, Russell Westbrook had this incident last week where he and Thabo Sefolosha were kind of getting into it, and then Russell stalked off to the locker room, had to be brought back, and then Craig Sager's interview later was really awkward.
Yeah.
And I mean, this guy, he's a jerk. I mean, but the problem is though he's such a jerk, he is just fun to watch on a basketball court because you don't know what you're going to get each night. You might have good Russ or you might have bad Russ, but regardless, it's Russell Westbrook, and he's just fun to watch. Do you like Russell Westbrook?
Yeah, no, I love him as an athlete. I love watching his game. It's really a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde situation with him. I feel that maybe it's growing wary on him that it's Kevin Durant's team, and he's the kind of athlete with the kind of ego where he deserves his own roster built around him. And they've made it work so far, but I'm beginning to question. I mean, I have the Thunder as the NBA Finals champion this year. I mean, this far through the season. But I'm beginning to wonder how much longer they can coexist before the Kobe and Shaq 2.0 happens. Because they're basically the same dominant type of player.
Yeah, and you got to think.
Respects.
I mean, yeah, and then for KD, I mean, he's not the type of guy who's going to try to snatch the spotlight from somebody else. He's kind of soft-spoken. He just gets the job done on the court. For Kevin Durant, Russell, as you mentioned, a lot more outspoken, a lot more technicals, a lot more staring down the ref, even though we saw Durant get a little stare down. I got the tech earlier this year. But it is going to be interesting come, when Russell continues to stay as the number 2 piece. Because do you think he could be a number 1 piece on a team in the NBA? Do you think he could be a star?
I think if you put the right pieces around him, maybe two solid perimeter defenders that can shoot well, and like a big rebounding guy that is a double-double threat, I feel like he could take a team through the finals, kind of the same way that Wade did in 2006. I mean, he had a lot of help from Shaq, but like I'm saying, I feel like he's the kind of athlete that can basically dominate a game. I see him a lot like a more talkative and more egotistical version of Derrick Rose.
Yeah, no, I definitely see that. My only problem is his inconsistency.
Yeah.
He'll have the nights where he'll shoot 2 for 20, and then he'll have the nights where he puts up 35. So if he can get more, again, he's still young. He's mad young. I mean, he's gonna hopefully mature with age. But we'll see. We'll see Russell Westbrook. The book is still not out on him. And now let's move on to one of our last topics of the night. We know we're running a little long here. But this was an important one, and I want to make sure we got to it. Bill Simmons, of course, came out with a piece on Grant Lind. I believe it was earlier last week. Again, if you haven't read it, it's still there on the front page, so definitely check it out.
Billy?
Yeah, Bill Simmons, both Matt and I, are one of our favorite writers of all time, and sports guys. And he had an interesting piece this week, and it was a lot of it had to do with PEDs. And the way we treat the issue of PEDs here in the sports world, and he talked about distinguishing from ESPN to his actual feelings, personal feelings, and it's an interesting topic to talk about. I want us to get into it, and first I want to get kind of your opinion, Matt, about the way we have these incidents with the Ray Lewis antler spray thing that happened, and Adrian Peterson. These are all things that Bill Simmons brought up in his piece. The AP comeback. We seem to not question as in depth than we want to, especially for guys that we like. Guys like Adrian Peterson, you want to root for, but there's definitely questions that have arisen surrounding him and his comeback, because he came back from a pretty gruesome injury.
Yeah, I wrote about that in my Freak of Nature piece a couple of months ago about how ridiculous the comeback was and how there hasn't been any speculation on steroids and stuff. And personally, for Adrian Peterson, I want to believe that he honestly came back. He truly is a freak of nature, as I said, and it's really perplexing. We've come to this point in society where we don't want to bring up necessarily the taboo topics, and obviously steroids is one of them. We're afraid to be the first person to delve into the topic for fear of what the repercussions may be. And at a certain point, we either have to just let it go and just let them all use the drugs and be like, okay, well, you know the consequences are on your body and you know the risks that you may go through, or we have to basically administer extensive testing multiple times during the year and solve this problem once for all. We can't be on the fence anymore. It's ridiculous that every few months we have a report come out like the one from the Miami New Times saying that 5 players that are, few of them still playing in the league right now, are using or have used performance-enhancing drugs. We have it's getting to the point where it's either has to be solved or it has to be let go of. We can't be in the middle of the road anymore. It's too difficult. And it means too much to the sports that we love for us to continue on like this. It's getting ridiculous.
And you're right. We're reaching that point. We're reaching that point where we have to make a decision on the way we're going to accept these and the way media outlets are going to report things like this. Because I think there are people in different camps. People, and we talked about this when the Miami story came out, and we kind of were poking fun at, do we even care about steroids in baseball anymore, because it's been so frequent the past 10 years hearing about it. But when it comes to sports as a whole, okay, we're bored about it when it comes to baseball, but when it starts coming into football, when it starts possibly coming into basketball, which of course David Stern's saying nobody's going to use PEDs in basketball. I mean, I think that's not true. I think guys are going to use PEDs in basketball, especially it's known as the free-for-all. You have certain P-tests you have to do without the year. Then after that last one, you have a solid almost month, I believe, for the rest of the season, or it was probably closer to a few weeks, but where you can kind of go crazy. No one's checking on you for the last couple of weeks. So for the NBA, but you have so many of these stories every single year. Lance Armstrong, as we've talked about on the show, on PEDs. You talk about the baseball players. Now Adrian Peterson, Ray Lewis is named thrown in there, and I think we have every right to question Ray Lewis. I think we have every right to delve into, because it's not really physically possible some of the time to come back from these injuries without help. And while as much as you want to believe Ray Lewis, as much as he wants you to believe himself, we have to ask these questions, and that's what ESPN and some of these places are not doing. They're not asking these questions. They're reporting when other people ask them, but you don't see guys going on TV and saying this because they fear their job. I mean, look what Rob Parker happened with him and RG3, and that's who Simmons brings up in the article. Now, while we completely dismiss Rob Parker's comments, obviously, still saying something like that gets you fired. It gets you fired nowadays, and it's crazy now.
Yeah, everyone's walking on eggshells because we don't know how far we can go without experiencing serious consequences, and it's just not fair. It's something that, as sports fans and not aspiring journalists, we have to realize that it's damaging the game. And walking on eggshells for all these years, and especially given the advancements in technology that we've experienced in the past 20 years even, it comes to a certain point where change is necessary. And the thing that David Stern's comments offended me the most. I don't understand how a Boston Celtics team that barely won 39 games last year given the Bulls did lose D Rose and that crippled basically any chance they had of competing for a title. But I don't understand how they can go the entire season looking like the old team that needs to be blown up, and then magically come within a game of defeating arguably the best team in basketball, who ended up being the finals champion in the Heat. I refuse to believe that there wasn't a single player in those playoffs that didn't use some type of substance. It doesn't make sense, and especially given the fact that they stopped testing them so early on in the season. If you're playing in the playoffs, you basically have a 3-month free period to do whatever you want. And like I said, it comes to a certain point as sports fans that change is necessary, and change can only be achieved when people start speaking their minds and dealing with the repercussions and not caring about them. The more people that bring this up over time, the more progress is going to be made. I mean, I don't want to bring up something like the civil rights era, but it's very similar to that in the respect that nobody was saying anything for so long that when people actually decide to start taking a stance and experiencing the repercussions for saying how they feel, change is achieved. And we as a society, a sports society, will not be able to achieve that until people start coming out and saying that things need to change.
And what upsets me is how, sports media outlets can harp on a story about a linebacker from Notre Dame and an imaginary girlfriend story, the Manti Te'o story, where they can get so in depth and they talk about it for day after day, analyze every little bit of it. They can do that to a kid. To Manti Te'o, and again, whatever your stance on the story, it's old news. We're not going to talk about it, but still, the way they can treat a story like that, and then the way they can dismiss another story about Adrian Peterson or Ray Lewis possibly getting involved with the wrong things, is just a little ridiculous, and it's a little bit of double standards. When it comes to certain stories, which stories we're going to actually report, which ones we're actually going to talk about. And of course, you can't report every single story. But when it comes to cheating in sports, we don't talk about it until after it's already been proven. We don't talk about it questioning or thinking about it. I mean, look at Skip Bayless, who I'm not even a Skip Bayless guy because I think a lot of what he says is ridiculous. But but honestly, Skip Bayless, he questions. He questions. He gets he goes over the line. I'm not going to lie. But the reason why I listened to that and I watched First Take is those are two guys who aren't afraid to question. And ESPN will keep them around because, one, of how long their careers have been, and two, because of the respect they have in their community and the outcry it would take. I mean, it would take Stephen A. Smith dropping the N-bomb on air for him to get kicked off that show.
He's done it before under his breath.
Yes, he has. Yes. He has, but it would have to take him literally saying it over and over again, like Django and Shane style. But again, those are two guys. When Skip Bayless, when Derek Jeter last season was having a season that he shouldn't have for his age, Skip Bayless said, question, and thought maybe Derek Jeter is using some kind of performance-enhancing drugs. And then suddenly immediately was lambasted by critics yelling at him and saying that's ridiculous, and how can you question Derek Jeter? But there's no guy who should be above our questioning partner. There's no guy who's too up there that we can't talk about. We can't question. And Derek Jeter, everyone thinks, the Mecca, the God in New York. I think, guys like him, guys like Adrian Peterson, who we love, we have to question. Guys like Ray Lewis, we have to question.
Exactly. You have to hold them all to the same standard because you can't let anyone slip through the cracks. I'm really excited that for this season, MLB is finally instigating blood testing for doping, and that is going to be monumental for changing the landscape of catching these guys that are cheating in sports. And the NFL will have HGH testing in the near future, which will be great, especially after the season. I'm more than speculative on Ray Lewis's return, as I've been saying this for the past couple of podcasts, keep bringing it up, but it just doesn't happen. It just doesn't happen like that. There's been so many guys that tear biceps and triceps that were out for the season. Brian Arakpo, for instance, he got hurt in week 2, early on in a week 2 game, and why didn't he return? Lewis gets hurt in week 10, I believe, maybe week 9, and he comes back for the playoffs.
Especially when we were saying he was gone. He was gone for the rest of the year.
Yeah, exactly. Brian Arakpo is not 37 years old. He's a better athlete. He's younger. He's in better shape. Yet he's not even close to being back yet. I mean, for an NFL game, it just doesn't happen like that. And like I said, we can't hold any of these guys. We have to hold all these guys to the same standard. Even like you said, I've never been a Skip Bayless fan. I never will be. But him bringing up Derek Jeter using steroids is completely legitimate. And like I said, the guys that we've been idolizing for so long believe me, there are guys that idolized Barry Bonds and McGwire and Sosa when they were doing it. And the reason it didn't come out for so long was maybe because we were idolizing them. So going forward, the more people that come out in high-ranking positions in the journalist society, I guess, the more people that come out and say stuff, the more likely change will happen.
Stricter policies, stricter testing, stricter investigations, and you got to catch it before. Yes, after the fact. Of course, you can always tell. I mean, Melky Cabrera went half the season almost having a career year before we said, hey, maybe this guy's cheating. Maybe he shouldn't be doing this. When it seems, again, there's a kind of the sniff test. And I know it's not a new saying or anything, but when it seems too good to be true, it probably is. And for guys like Adrian Peterson, it seems too good to be true. And there's not a better guy to root for. But at the same time, we got to question, and that's what we're just talking about here. Again, we're not super journalists, we're not super pundits on ESPN, but we're
one day.
Yes, hopefully. But we're admitting that we don't know everything, but we still know that there needs to be a change in the way we treat PEDs in this country. And it's an issue that's really arisen in the past 15 years, but it's been there for longer. But now we're finally talking about it. And you made the comparison to civil rights, and again, I'd agree. It's something that, in the way that we have to talk about it.
Yeah.
And change is hopefully going to happen when it comes to PEDs and sports. Again, it is just sports. We know people who aren't sports fans, they don't care. They think the guys can cheat as much as they want. It's not affecting their lives. But for us, for diehard sports fans, and you don't even have to be diehard, but it's affecting the way we like sports. So we'll see what happens here. But again, we just wanted to cover that. And again, if you haven't read Bill Simmons' article, go ahead and read it, because it's on Grantland.com, and it's a great one. Hopefully we'll have some stuff on PEDs. We'll probably try to write something sometime soon. So again, that's about it for the end of the show. We're running kind of long here, but I'm glad we talked about the stuff we did get to talk about tonight. We're going to try to do another show sometime soon. And again, we're going to work some more video. If you're watching the YouTube version of this one right now, we're going to go ahead and stay tuned for the next version we're going to put up probably later tonight. We're going to have some cool effects on it and stuff like that. So if you're watching this immediately on YouTube, it'll be around for a while until we have the next version up. Then we're going to take this one down, put up the new one. So, and if you're watching the new one, then you've seen some of the, hopefully, the cool stuff we can do with it. Again, we're just kind of learning as we go. But again, I have a new piece up there. I know Matt Stevens is going to have a piece up there. I know you're going to have a piece up on the site sometime soon. So, again, we're trying to focus on all aspects here. But it's been fun, man, and we're still in the running. This is only show number 8, and I feel like it's getting better each time we do it. So that about does it. Any final thoughts here, partner, before we skedaddle?
Only 8 more days until the Nats report for spring training. I'm excited.
Oh, God, this is, again, we're going to get more geeky about baseball the closer we get to the season, but I know you and I both can't wait. Now that the NFL's done, too, now we got hockey and we got basketball for now, but we can't wait for baseball. Well, that about does it for the First Pick Podcast here, and again, check out for some more content coming up. Again, follow us on Twitter at First Pick Blog, and on Facebook, facebook.com/First Pick Blog. For my partner, Matt, I'm Ben. Everyone have a good night. This has been the First Pick Podcast on the firstpickblog.com.